Hey YouTubers, Strasbourg 1991 here, Nicholas Menovich back for another Strasbourg 1991 Productions for one final create your own book haul for the end of the 2021 season. I know people are asking myself, why aren't you doing your own book hauls, but I actually have a few book hauls that I have yet to find, so here are some of my unique favorites. In non-alphabetical order, non-geographical order. Here are some of a few titles, I think, for Josh Caparelli, Zach Lawless, Ari Schneidergans, etc. I think you're going to be in for a real treat. There's actually have my top 5 titles for Safety First, and I'll give a few to start off with. So we start off with number 5. Number 5, Battered on the Bayou. For those who are unaware what that book is, this is actually the real life story of the wreck of the Sunset Limited off of Big Bayou Canot in Mobile, Alabama on September 22nd of 1993. It shows you the locomotive footage. It shows you what happened. It shows you the people who were killed, injured, regulations changed, everything. There's actually a story of what actually happened on that train and why everything that fell in the water was written off as scrap metal for $45,000 apiece. Unfortunately, all 3 units and four of the 11 cars fell off 13 cars, I should say, fell off the trestle and plunged into the bayou. All 3 engines had their glass visors smashed open, some corroded with alkaline, some of them were actually just gutted. They were just completely gone for that. Number 4, I think, is a huge factor in the safety of regulations for screening. Number 4, corruption on the corridor. This is about the Colonial heading from Washington to Boston on the Northeast District. This is actually about a story of a gentleman named Richard Lynn Gates, who was convicted of aggravated vehicular manslaughter by locomotive and driving under the influence of alcohol and drugs, sentenced to life on probation, and actually was given a 5-year sentence in state, actually did 10 years, 5 in state prison and 5 in federal prison. He was permanently banished from working for Conrail or for any railroads. At the time, the railroads did not have the screening for drugs and alcohol up until after January 3rd of 1987. Actually, it was between the 2nd and 3rd of 1987 when the head-on collision occurred. The B-36-7, which is a General Electric unit model. One of them was actually skeletonized. The only thing left was a cab and an axle frame. The other 2, the 900 and 903, were Amtrak AEM-7s. They were toaster engines because of the shape. They looked like microwave ovens, also nicknamed meatballs because of the way they were delivered. Factory fresh when it was inception around 1971. 16 were killed, 170 injured. Number 3, the forefront of public concern at Fox River Grove, Illinois. Actually about a story about Patricia Cattenkamp becoming a role model for the NTSB. This was about back in October of 25th of 1995 when a school bus was stalled on the train tracks. The commuter train, the Flyer, actually smashed into the bus at 70 miles per hour, ripping the bus body off the chassis. 7 students were killed. 28 suffered critical injuries because of a flawed safety system in the traffic lights. The timing system in the traffic lights was completely flawed, similar to the one in Clapham Junction on December 12th of 1988. Number 2 was actually one of the worst of all of safety hazards. This was called Cold Decisions, Hot Water. Was basically a true story off the Gettysburg Railroad crown sheet backdraft or a controlled boiler explosion on the Gettysburg Railroad back in June of 1995. The crew were James Cornell, who no longer was living, but at the time he suffered fourth-degree burns from the crown sheet collapsing because of water going below the crown sheet. And the history was, if water goes below the crown sheet, you could actually be blown away from a boiler explosion. And because of a safety designation, safety design from its locomotive shops in Kingston, Ontario, it actually kept the boiler on the frame and actually didn't rip everything off the frame by killing the crew. But it could have been worse. But this goes to show Operation Lifesaver and the NTSB play no games with that type of behavior at all, and shows the distinction between safety records, maintenance records, etc. Number one actually goes for a two-way tie. One of them was actually called Panic in Paradise, which was basically in St. Patrick's Day of 1993. William Parker, an Amtrak engineer who plowed into a gasoline tanker with about 5,000 or 6,000 gallons of about 9,000 gallons of gasoline from a six-axle tanker truck, and stuck on the crossing and charred 6 people, including the truck driver who was killed in the wreck. And the other one was, I think, one of the most gruesomest, but also one of the most, very beyond the most alarming. This was actually a true story. It was actually called, actually off of Operation Lifesaver. It was actually, the story was actually called, it's called Flaws to Fatal Danger, which is actually about the story of Mary Wotila, who she was a 41-year-old woman at the time in 1991, who actually got killed by a commuter train at 75 miles per hour, and the impact of how she was taken away was just some of the most gruesome, some of the most horrific, and some of the most disgusting, and way past permanent trauma that anybody could suffer. The editing was the gruesome parts and blood and guts were edited out, thank goodness. But the impact is very non-fictional, and this was actually because of Operation Lifesaver to demonstrate the dangers of not trying to beat transit crossings, not trying to go through the lowered gates, not trying to play around the railroad tracks or try to ignore the railroad warning signals or whatever. But Operation Lifesaver's done more over the last 50 years to the almost exactly for the day when it was first inception after Amtrak was inception in 71. Operation Lifesaver was founded in 72. Jerry Hall, was the founder, former CEO, president of Operation Lifesaver, and she has been fully retired since 2007, October of 2007. So, to give you a heads up. So that's my top 5 for safety hazard titles. I thought everyone would like it. I'll actually give him I'll give him a little bit of the not post-it note, but the time cards, and hopefully I will hear from the rest of all you YouTubers soon. Okay, signing off.